All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone had a good meal. I know it's always a little bit difficult after having been eating then to engage already in another discussion. But I think this one is very, very important and also very interesting because we are dealing with the region which is here. We are dealing with the South Caucasus, mainly obviously with Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. And I very much look forward to an interesting and fruitful discussion. And I would like to start first by introducing the topic, which is the South Caucasus. Can the new connectivity opportunities transform the region? So we know it's a difficult situation. It has been here for many years, especially between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But this panel is not going to be only about the past. I mean, the past does matter, we know that. But we really want also to look into the future. I mean, what can become the future of the region? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And I'm very happy that I have three distinguished speakers. And I would like to introduce first Areg Kochinyan. He's to my left. He's the president of the Research Center of Security Policy, as well as also the host of TV's Dilemma TV series. Thank you for coming. I would like to introduce then to my right Farid Shafiyev. He's the German of the AIR Center, the Center of Analysis of International Relations in Baku, also former ambassador to Canada, if I'm not mistaken, and the Czech Republic. And we do have, last but surely not least, Shota Utiashvili. I think most of you know him already. He's a senior fellow here at the Rondeli Foundation, has been dealing for many years with international relations, European Union integration, and security. I would also like to thank, obviously, the organizers. I think it has so far been a very insightful conference, and I look forward now to the discussion. I mean, we do only have 1 hour, which is not too much time. There are so many issues, I think everyone knows. We are not going to be able to tackle all of them, but I do hope that in the first statements we manage at least to get a little bit of the picture. So the idea is especially how can also this whole connectivity agenda be used as kind of a transformative power. I mean, we know that especially Armenia has been quite isolated right now, but the Russian war against Ukraine and also the followed sanctions, the European Union sanctions, the Western sanctions, put the spotlight on something which has not been on the table too much, at least from the part of the world where I come from, which is the Middle Corridor, which is linking or trying to link China, Central Europe, South Caucasus with Turkey and then the European Union. So it's a huge project. And there is the idea that at one point, if Armenia and Azerbaijan do come to this peace agreement, that everybody would profit. So, I mean, it is interlinked. And obviously, there are still many, many problems also when it comes to this peace agreement. I mean, it has not yet been signed. There is some progress. There is some backsliding. There is some interpretational problems. We are going to touch upon some of them, I guess. But I really would like to start with you, Areg. Maybe you can give us just a little bit. What is your opinion? What are the prospects? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? Can there be a win-win situation created? Who could be supporting? What about maybe you can, I don't know if you have time also then to touch about the regional actors. So I would mainly ask you in your first statement maybe to focus a little bit more on Armenia, the situation Armenia is in, but also giving hopefully a positive outlook for the future. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Generally, connectivity infrastructure are the main reasons either for the nations to go to war or to actually build up the peace and the cooperation. Both scenarios and both developments are pretty much possible. South Caucasus, if you look to the map, looks exactly like a crossroad between north and south, west and east. And for a long period of time, the main infrastructure in this region was either mapped and then built up by Russian Empire, then the Soviet Empire, and the map of the infrastructure was designed by Russia from the very beginning, let's say. And this design also had its imperial architecture, meaning that Russia would have one way or another an upper hand on this design, let's say. So in this meaning, I would say that the most interesting development to me for the new architecture of the communications and infrastructure are the new elements, new models, new developments. So one of them is obviously the Middle Corridor, but not only one, by the way. Another idea is the connection between the Black Sea and the Persian Gulf. Another idea is the Armenian idea of north to south, connecting Iran to Georgia, and then obviously to the Black Sea. So a lot of ideas. The essence of these ideas for the Armenian government is the idea of the crossroad of peace, or the Armenian crossroad as we call it. This is basically a series of roads, a series of infrastructure that we either already have or we are ready to build. Namely, 5 roads that would connect our eastern borders with our western borders, meaning Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan and Azerbaijan with Turkey. Those are railroads, and those are car roads, let's say. Huh? And also the main road from north to south that would connect Georgian border to the Iranian border. Now, there are 4 principles that the government of Armenia have raised about this, future cooperation and opening up the maps and the logistics. Those are very 4 basic and legal principles. Sovereignty, that each road should be under the full control and sovereignty of the respective state. Jurisdiction, that each road should be under the jurisdiction of the respective state. Reciprocity and equality. Equality and reciprocity, meaning that if we are agreeing on some exclusive economic conditions or rights for one piece of road, then the connectivity or the connection of the road should have the same. What does this mean? If we are talking about, for example, that one piece of road that passes through Armenia and connects Azerbaijan with Turkey or Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan has some exclusive economic rights, let's say, meaning, for example, no taxation or no custom payings or very light custom checkings, Armenia and Armenian cargo should have either the same through the territory of Azerbaijan or the same through the territory of Turkey. I mean, it's very basic, it's very normal and legitimate source for future cooperation and opening up the maps. Who is interested in this procedure and who is not? That was one of your questions. Now, obviously, Russia is not only in raising the level of connectivity and opening up the logistics, but also generally in peace. My belief and my analysis is that it's a nightmare for Russia if there is an Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization and followingly Armenian-Turkish normalization, because in that case, in a matter of days, Russia will lose half of its influence and input in South Caucasus. That's the worst scenario, let's say for Russia, and it goes the same for the infrastructure and for the logistics if there is no Russian control over the logistics. As I said from the very beginning, the design of the old infrastructure was Russian, but now when we are talking, for example, about this, in the scopes idea of Zangezur corridor, again in the scopes because there is no territorial unit in Armenia called Zangezur, and Russian presence on this corridor, this will just raise the influence of Russia and influence and in the future also problems created by Russia. So I don't think we should recreate the Russian agenda and recreate the Russian design over our infrastructure. On the other hand, West seems, and when I say West, namely European Union and the United States, seems interested in the project because first, the Middle Corridor itself is an interesting project, and second, the more independent South Caucasus by design of its infrastructure becomes from Russia, the better for the West. Turkey also seems interested in this project for its own reasons, for its own representativeness in the South Caucasus. Iran is interested, but on its own conditions, let's say, because currently the connection between Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan is, if I'm not mistaken, is being done through the territory of Iran. And my overall feeling is that Iran wouldn't like the idea of losing this, carte blanche, this only connection that passes through their territory, connecting Azerbaijan through Nakhichevan, which is a portion of influence, a portion of not only economical but also political influence for Iran on Azerbaijan and on Turkey at some extent. To keep it short, currently we live in a momentum of changes and in a momentum of transit, when either a long-lasting peace and a long-lasting cooperation will be possible to build in this piece of land, or another 20 or 30 years of confrontation, blockade, etc., etc. That's also possible. Let's be realistic. The last element I wanted to stress out, I wouldn't connect directly the peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan to the communications. Obviously, there is a connection, and obviously they are interdependent, but to the level. I can imagine a situation when the peace treaty is signed, but there is no infrastructure being opened or renovated or constructed, and vice versa. By the way, I can also imagine that we can go on and work with the infrastructure without actually having the peace treaty on the land. So they are connected, obviously, but to the level, to the extent. They are not 100% interconnected, let's say. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask about if a peace treaty is actually needed to fulfill this infrastructure project. So I get from your point, not necessarily, but it obviously would help. Yeah, because I'm especially guessing, obviously, with Turkey, since it seems that Turkey might insist on having a peace treaty before getting really to normalization, which at least is what I hear. But thank you very much. I think that was very comprehensive and getting to the point. And Farid, I think you also have a slide. The same question, actually, also to you. The whole region, what does it mean for the region if a peace agreement could be reached? And also, what is the perspective, the challenges and prospects for Azerbaijan? Because I have been hearing in Armenia and also in Azerbaijan, when I was here recently in September, that everyone said everybody would profit. So what is your take on that one?
Well, I would like, first of all, thank you, Rondeli Foundation, our good friends here, many friends in this excellent team. And by the way, I know personally all three people at the panel. Met with IIP, we're also working, and we met even with my Armenian counterpart on some close dialogue in Tbilisi. I would like to start with the larger picture about the importance of middle corridor. If you remember in the 90s, and when I come to that map, in the 90s, European Union promoted a project called Traseka, through Caucasus, Europe, Caucasus, Central Asia to China. That was the idea of trade. But over time, over these 3 decades, China took a lead with BRI and some other projects. Now we came to the notion of middle corridor, and it became especially attractive, and we see increased flow of goods through the middle corridor for a number of geopolitical reasons. First of all, the Russian-Ukrainian war, and basically northern corridor through Russia now is shut down or very limited. And traditional sea route through the Red Sea now is also under threat because of the Middle East crisis, Houthis, and etc. And we are speaking not only about the shipments, but internet cables. Today's was down, Facebook was not working, so was the big news. So there is a promising opportunities, because of that geopolitical tension. And we see already Azerbaijan made practical steps toward the increasing middle corridor, enforcing it. We built Baku-Tbilisi cars railway with Turkish and Georgian partners. And by the way, in 2007, when we started doing this project, I should also note that the United States and European Union refused to finance this project. And basically, Azerbaijan almost financed this project and gave a 1% credit line on very low interest rate to Georgia. And now we're upgrading this Baku-Tbilisi cars. It's working. I mean, middle corridor is working. It needs a bit additional investment and some infrastructural, modifications. But I think it's promising. Now, the idea about the Zangezur corridor, historically, there was some names which was used in the region. We prefer that name. Armenians call this region Sunik. It's, Armenians call part of our territory Artsakh. We don't accept that. We call it Karabakh. So all these terms, of course, are also subject of some discussion, disputes. But the idea coming from the trilateral statement, Article 9, and Article 9 specifically says about unimpeded movement of cargo and people. In Russian it says беспрепятственный. So we see that the cargo from Azerbaijan to its another part, Nakhichevan, as you see, should go without any impediments. Similar regime exists to Kaliningrad, between Russia and Kaliningrad through the European Union territory, Lithuania. But when it comes to the third countries' goods, we believe that it will be, you know, just standard international regime, customs, etc. So, but for this specifically, our cargoes and people to Nakhchivan, we would like to have special regime. And we believe it's the obligation on the trilateral statement. So we have different views with Armenia on interpretation of trilateral statement. Definitely I agree with Stephanie that we should leave the past for the past, but for us, for Azerbaijan, that past still, you know, we have a legacy of destruction and contamination. So we would like to ensure that the interest, and also I've been asked to speak about the peace process, that our security interest, our security guarantees will be ensured for many years ahead. In this regard, we working on peace treaty, we actually tabled this peace treaty based on the mutual recognition of territorial integrity. And we believe the opening of transportation corridors also is a part of the positive agenda. Just like the European community, let's say, after the Second World War, they started with a very small project, steel and coal agreement between Benelux countries, France and Germany, and when it emerged into, you know, the Rome Treaty, etc. So we believe also that something can be done at that level, but I agree that the peace treaty is not going to contain any specific provisions. It will be probably the framework agreement about the opening of transportation corridors, and some other issues would be left for additional elaboration. As with regard to this, another important issue is security. I should mention that this map, you see the road which passing through the Armenian territory. During the Soviet time, this railroad existed. It was dismantled during occupation. And when we had the conflict with Armenia, there was an attack on trains. So we would like to have some security guarantees on that. Now the Armenia has a bit tension with Russia, but overall, Russia has military bases in Armenia. The borders from with Turkey and with Iran are guarded by Russians. So I think, you know, despite all this negativity, the two countries remain in the same economic union, and I believe should be we should find some of the ways how to ensure this rail. We believe this link through Azerbaijan, through Megri, what Armenians call Megri, and Julfa. It's beneficial projects because also might potentially connect Azerbaijan and Armenia, Iran, Turkey, and Russia, and create this kind of network of the railways. This is where's the crossroad in Julfa, because during Soviet time it was exactly the Moscow-Tehran train was going through that line. As far as Georgia, as I said, we are working with Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railway and with some other projects, energy projects, and Azerbaijan also proposed to create trilateral platform, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia. The Prime Minister Garibashvili, now the former Prime Minister, also agreed with this initiative. So we have at least two countries who interested in creating this regional platform.
Thank you. Thank you very much also for sticking to the time, so I'm not complaining there. So you have been mentioning as well, I mean, there is this different interpretation about how actually this connection between Armenia and Azerbaijan should and could look like. And maybe before I go to you, Shota, I would still like to ask you and then also give you briefly also the possibility to reflect on this. Is that it seemed to be, I mean, I'm guessing that in 2020, it seemed to be a win-win situation. I mean, obviously, we also need to say that in 2020, Armenia was definitely militarily defeated. So there is an asymmetry in power relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I think that's quite fair to say. And this might be, maybe you can also reflect on that one, why now Armenia is not so happy about, you know, like what does it really mean, this unobstructed, let's say, flow of people, cargo and persons. And then there is obviously also in the trilateral agreement the Russian security forces mentioned. So this becomes a little bit more difficult. So what is your take on that?
Well, again, about the asymmetric power, for 30 years, Armenia was the strongest supporter of the Russian presence in the region. We still have the military bases. So we've been in a disadvantageous situation for many decades. We advocated for, diplomatic solution based on the principle of territorial integrity, principle now which is compromised in many parts of the world. But yes, we've built now the relationship with Turkey and with some other countries. But on the Armenian side, we see that development going on between France and quite interesting now the French ambassador in Armenia yesterday said that with Iran, we disagree on many things, but we agree on Armenia. And today's Armenian defense minister in Iran. So I wouldn't say that there is the asymmetric of power. Yes, we liberated our territories. This is the outcome of the last war. But again, we should, again, stick to the principles of international law, try to work around the peace treaty. It's very lengthy process. We should be realistic expectation that there will be some disagreements. But with the goodwill and if no external powers will be meddling and exacerbating situation, I think we can reach some positive outcome. Because after all, it's our geography we can somehow to end up with some agreement.
Would you like to reflect briefly on that one? Yeah.
I'll start from the trilateral declaration of the November 9. You know, it's a piece of paper that by design, by the moment it was written, is written in a way that if 5 different people will read it, 5 different people can understand completely different things. And I don't think it was done like accidentally. It was done on purpose. Because that's not a paper aimed to end conflicts. That's actually a paper that aims to recreate the conflicts internally. Now, when we're talking about the piece of road that should pass through Armenia, through Syunik, what is written in trilateral declaration? It's said that Russians should have overseeing of it. You know, I can see overseeing as we will give Russians chance once per year come and see this road from 5 kilometers away from a binocle. My Azerbaijani colleague can see that overseeing means that the Russian FSB guards should stand on the road with automat of Kalashnikovs every 100 meters and actually guard the Azerbaijani cargo and people passing through the road. It's a matter of interpretation, but because of November 9 declaration, according to our interpretation, was violated for so many times on the territory of Azerbaijan regarding the Karabakh and the ethnic Armenians, but according to Azerbaijan, it was not. So how do we understand is the declaration is violated or not? To me, it matters whose territory are we talking about. If we're talking about Armenian territory, then our interpretation matters. No one else's interpretation doesn't matter when we're talking about our territory. As the past 2 or 3 years have showed about whose interpretation mattered on Azerbaijani territory, including Karabakh and other parts. Regarding the peace treaty and how important is the peace agreement, obviously you can't even stress how important it is, because that's the beginning of the guarantees. This treaty will not obviously solve all the single issues between us, and it will not be, guys, as today was mentioned, окончательная бумажка, the final document. No, it will be just the beginning. You know, we have this very small piece file, let's say, with very limited amount of documents in it, and we have this gigantic war file with huge amount of papers, you know, history and acts against each other. My belief is we have to, you know, enlarge it to the extent that is possible at this moment. Right now, there are two principal disagreements that doesn't allow the peace treaty to be signed today, let's say. First is that the Armenian side wants some clarification, wants some clarity on the future process of delimitation and demarcation. We want some legal framework in which the future delimitation and demarcation is going to happen. What we hear as an answer usually is, no, we need creative approach. That sounds a little bit scary, to be honest. Second element is the communication. As you have clearly seen, we have some different understanding and some different, you know, basis for the future connectivity and the infrastructure. My idea is that we don't need to create, you know, bicycles. Everything in the international relations is well regulated, and the four principles that Armenia suggests, as I said, sovereignty, jurisdiction, reciprocity, and equality, are the basis for opening up any communication in any part of the world. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shota, now it's your turn. I mean, most probably much might depend on how and when the war against Russia obviously also ends. I mean, it's a very important factor for Georgia as well. So what do you think if this peace treaty can be reached with whatever problems are still there? So I do think there is still hope that it might be managed. It might not be perfect. There might still be some roadmaps included in there, like on how to proceed, whatever. But what would that mean for Georgia? How would Georgia profit? And does it also help Georgia in trying also to reduce, let's say, it's kind of also dependency on Russian somehow, like getting more detached from Russia also economically. It already is, obviously. I mean, it's as far as I know, the European Union already is the biggest trading partner with Georgia. And since Georgia has been granted the European Union candidate status in December last year, I mean, we have been talking about it yesterday at a very nice event on Georgia. I mean, maybe you can also reflect a little bit about what can Georgia hope from this, and also what this maybe also might mean to the whole region. I mean, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia all have been members of the Eastern Partnership countries. I mean, you now have the perspective. There are even some rumors about Armenia at least thinking about a possible European Union accession at one point in the future. So what is your take on all the issues which have been mentioned before?
Well, thank you, Stephanie, and thanks, dear colleagues, dear friends. Actually, for Georgia, obviously the most important thing is to have a lasting peace in the region, because the lasting peace in the region answers our several key demands. One of the key things is that we are now living in an extremely fragile region. We have the Russia-Ukraine war in our neighborhood. We have war to our south, wars to our east. And let me also remind you, but a very bad reminder, that Russia still keeps troops on all three South Caucasian countries. In Georgia, Georgia's occupied territories, Azerbaijan, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, the Russian peacekeepers, if one can call this way, in Azerbaijan territory, and also in the Armenian territory. Therefore, I cannot stress this enough, that Russia's behavior in its neighborhood and the fact that Russia still has the three military in all three South Caucasian states makes peace so much more desirable, and makes us hope that everybody in the region will do utmost to make peace. Yesterday we were listening the whole day very pessimistic scenarios about what might happen in the U.S. if Trump wins, that there is general Western withdrawal from this region. That's very bad for Georgia, because Georgia is hoping to get a NATO member. It is a candidate state to the EU. But what we see is that regional peace and security must be based on the regional cooperation more. And that's why Georgia has to do utmost to promote regional cooperation. Without, of course, getting into details, Georgia can offer the platform to both sides if they are willing to use it to promote regional cooperation. And more importantly, I think the security architecture. Over time, we will see the need for security architecture to become more and more acute, and this need to be answered because traditional, what we have seen for the last 30 years, that security architecture is gone, and it's apparently not coming back. Role of Turkey is going to be more and more important, and in both in terms of economy and in terms of security. And the Turkish position, as I said, will matter a lot. Obviously, out of security, the next thing that comes is the connectivity and the peace dividend, because the peace dividend can be huge. The Azerbaijan has been our very constructive partner in building the corridor through Georgia, energy corridor, railway, automobile, highways, etc. And this should continue. Clearly, the middle corridor has more prospects than it ever had. And including of Armenia in this corridor would probably make it more secure and more stable. Therefore, the Georgian perspective, to be very, very brief, and again, not to get involved in the details, is that it's time for us probably to focus on building the lasting security architecture for the region, and then use this to build new sources for the economic growth. And certainly the connectivity will be one of the key sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe also a quick following up question, since you mentioned also regional cooperation, which would be very important. I mean, it was mentioned before, it's a small area, but it does obviously, I mean, have this link via Turkey and also via the Black Sea then to Europe and also to the European Union on the one hand and then to Central Asia on the other hand. And it was also mentioned by Farid, you know, that there has been this idea of having like this trilateral platform, you know. Do you think that maybe after at one point when there is a peace agreement which is at least long-lasting or which is at least acceptable for both parts, because this is, I come from the peace field, it's very important that if you talk about peace agreements, they need to be perceived as just from the parties involved and from all of the parties. So, you know, like all this, not having this winner's peace, but actually also it's a lot about winning the peace. But what do you think about something like the Western Balkans have been trying to do it, you know, like having this open Balkans, they call it, which is, that's very, in a nutshell, more or less like a small European Union, you know, like to strengthen a regional cooperation between the three states, like when it comes to like everything, when it comes to the roads, when it comes to connectivity, when it comes to, all those issues.
Certainly the Western Balkans is probably easier because all the countries there have the common goal of joining the EU. In this region, this is not the case, and it is very important that we respect everybody's strategic autonomy and we respect everybody's choices. And every regional cooperation project is done through these lenses, that the countries will have still different choices. But overall, Georgia would be supporting any project that aims at regional stability and more regional interconnectedness. Therefore, Georgia will be only for promotion of those projects because they have given Georgia a lot of benefit. They've given Azerbaijan a lot of benefit. And certainly if Armenia joins in, then we can be more hopeful about a more peaceful future. Because I am very afraid that again, if these doomsday scenarios materialize about the West and about the Russia-Ukraine war, etc., then these regional countries will have to invent some different kinds of cooperation to guarantee their peace. And the sooner we start thinking about it, the better.
Thank you. I already see many hands, so I would have more questions, but maybe we can already start then going into questions. And since there are so many, I would suggest that we collect maybe three first, maybe starting with Mr. here and then there and there. I would very much also encourage ladies to ask questions since it is an all-male panel already. So please, ladies, ask questions. They can be tough, so you go along.
Thank you. Sergei Gabanadze from GRAS. To Mr. Shafiyev, what is the position of Azerbaijan on this proposed connectivity for peace formula, which includes so many roads? There's some overlaps with the vision of Baku, but there's some which do not. So what is acceptable and not acceptable from those? And then a small follow-up there. How essential is it that the so-called Zangezur or Sunni corridor is actually controlled or patrolled by the Russian forces? To Mr. Kochinyan, also a brief question. How far do you think Yerevan will go in detaching itself from Moscow? We've seen the statement about withdrawal of the Russian border guards from the airport. Is it also going to concern the withdrawal of the Gyumri base, withdrawal from the CSTO? In other words, how far is the government able to go? And on the Sunni corridor, a brief question. Mr. Shafiyev said here that for them it's essential that the cargo going from one part of Azerbaijan to another fits in the special regime, but the rest could be under international regime. So is that a problematic thing for Armenia? And if not, then where is the problem? And finally, for Mr. Utiashvili, very briefly, is this really a kind of a provocative question? Is this really a non-zero sum for Georgia? In other words, if all these things open up in the South Caucasus, isn't there a slight chance that the cargo that goes now to the territory of Georgia will reorient to the south and Georgia might lose as a result? Thank you.
Thank you. That was 3 questions, but I still take another one. First in the back, and then you.
I was first.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
My name is Oleg. I work for the UN.
We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
Hello?
Put it, yeah.
Yeah. My name is Oleg. I work for the UN in the South Caucasus. I have 2 questions. First to Areg. You said there are 2 outstanding issues: principles of delimitation and connectivity, communication through Armenia. What previously there was an issue, especially important for Armenia, about guarantees. Obviously, Azerbaijan wanted bilateral. Armenia, as a weaker side in this situation, insisted on guarantees. Do you think official Armenia government dropped this? And then recently, there are Azerbaijani experts point to the list of legal documents in Armenia, starting from constitution, that they think should be changed. Do you think it's another requirement, or you think it's less important than those 2 that you mentioned? And in November, Baku will host one of the biggest events in the world, climate convention, COP meeting. And it was possible because Armenia agreed to that or supported that. Do you think Armenian delegation will go there, or what will be determining whether Armenia will participate in that? And to Farid, this question about is Azerbaijan raising the stakes or demands? Is Areg should be scared about this flexibility in border delimitation? And then, in terms of this delimitation, this issue of enclaves, is it part of delimitation, or Azerbaijan insists that these enclaves should be a separate discussion? And then recently Armenia talks about 31 villages controlled by Azerbaijan. What's your comments on that? What is Azerbaijani official position on this? That there are also a lot of territories controlled by Azerbaijan.
Thank you so much. We need to make a cut right now. I mean, I'm seeing you there, but because there have been so many questions, who would want to start answering? I noted them down. So, but maybe
about the proposals, this road. I have actually to save the time, the short memo. It's also available printed here, but also on the website. We believe that our proposal to connection create through Nakhchivan, through Julfa, through Azerbaijan, and through Turkey, it's beneficial for all sides. And unfortunately, in terms of the crossroad of peace, 3 years passed after the 2020. There is no practical steps implemented by Armenia, but we already started building the railroads from Haradis. You see this blue line, and we signed agreement with Turkey. So we're doing that, and even we see that if the corridor is not, or let's say Armenians say very uneasy about the word corridor, can be. I mean, we're using the word middle corridor, also corridor, which passing through the several countries doesn't mean about extraterritorial status. We're working with Iran too to build another alternative. So anyway, it's up to, I think now, to Armenia to decide whether they want to be part of this network or remain isolated. But again, in the crossroad of peace, we see there is lack of more concrete steps. With regard to security, as I said, this is the vital issue for us. So that's why we would like to have some security regime. Somebody should guard this road. With regard to somebody saying they're raising stakes at the negotiations, you know, this is the history well known. 30 years our territory was under occupation. And by the way, yesterday Austrian delegation, parliamentary delegation visited liberated territory. They've seen the all areas flat with no infrastructure left. So that's why when we're speaking about the stakes, it's our stake that in the future we won't have any revanchism. And we're really concerned that the Armenians' constitutional documents contain direct reference to our territory. So that's the also issue should be somehow addressed and resolved. Because let's say we sign the peace agreement, and in 5-10 years, Constitutional Court of Armenia will say, you know, this peace agreement was illegal because it contradicts to our constitution. By the way, the second president of Armenia, Robert Kochinyan, he was elected and he didn't have 5 years residence in Armenia. Constitutional Court of Armenia said that his residence in Karabakh on the Azerbaijan territory, we counted as a residence on Armenian territory, and he was elected in '98. So there is indeed other underlying issues. And last question about enclaves. I believe this issue is also vital. I don't know how Armenians now saying we control 31 villages. I mean, the border is not delimited, not demarcated. 30 years this was under occupation. How someone can claim which part of villages? But I really doubt that how this 30, because if you look at the maps, some of the villages inside Armenian territory. So I believe this issue of enclaves should be dealt through the delimitation process.
Yes. Yeah. Other question to you were on the COP29 especially. On the COP29, if Armenians will participate, and then it was obviously also about this Sunni region, the delimitation, and you can also comment on the exclaves and enclaves, and if it should be, being resolved in this process of demarcation, delimitation of the borders. And
sure, I'll start from the last one. A lot of questions, though. Well, first of all, I don't obviously represent anyhow official Yerevan. I just express my opinion. My opinion is that yes, Armenian delegation would go and it should go to Baku to this conference. As I said, we live in a time when we need to, raise and enlarge the peace file because it's too tiny, and the more positive stories, the more positive events, the better. So my opinion is that yes, Armenian delegation should go to Baku to this event. Now, regarding the questions, I'll start from the constitution. We recently see a lot of, noise and a lot of information on this issue. Two elements here: one about the constitution, a second about other parts of legislation. Now, other part of legislation is already solved because the supposed peace treaty agreement has a point about that none of the inner legislation points can be a reason not to fulfill any part of this treaty. So we already covered this in the treaty because international documents are higher than the inner jurisdiction, but not the constitution. So this point solves everything else, not the constitution. Now, regarding the constitution, is there a direct demand in the constitution of Armenia to Azerbaijan? No, there is not. There is the Declaration of Independence of Armenia, which doesn't directly raise a demand against Azerbaijan, which declares as one of national goals the reunification of Karabakh and Armenia. Now, the declaration is connected with the constitution, but not directly. The constitution refers to national goals, not namely to every single one. So when I'll explain you also the procedure. When we will sign the peace treaty, it will be first ratified by the parliament, then immediately it will be sent to the constitutional court. So there can be no situation when the constitutional court will refer to this situation in 10 years. It will do it in a very short period of time. And we have a precedent of a similar situation. In 2008, when the Armenian-Turkish protocols, the Zurich protocols were signed, the Armenian party of Dashnaktutun have took these protocols to the constitutional aim, to the constitutional court with the same reasoning, because one of the national goals is the recognition of the Armenian genocide. So it's in the same block together with Karabakh and Armenian unification. But the constitutional court declared that the protocols are constitutional. So far, constitutional court already answered to the question whether any international agreement that somehow contradicts with the national aims written down in the Declaration of Independence are constitutional or not. It declared that they are constitutional. So we already have the precedent, and honestly speaking, I see this whole noise and this whole information about the so-called problem in the Armenian constitution as just a reason to create an obstacle into the road of signature of the peace treaty. The problem is that the Constitutional Court of Armenia is the only body that can make comments on the constitution. Can make these comments only after the signature. We can't, give you the answer what will be the decision of the Constitutional Court prior to the sign. This is the procedure. You sign, then you ratify, then you go to the Constitutional Court. Again, we don't need to create any bicycles. Regarding the security of the roads, because it was mentioned for several times already. Well, first of all, it's not only the Azerbaijani who suffered from the war, and it's not only the Azerbaijani cargos or transportation who suffered because of the war. The same was about Armenia. Our railroads, our connectivity was damaged in Azerbaijan. So we also can raise that we have, security issues regarding passing the territory of Azerbaijan. So if we are talking about security guarantees on the territory of Armenia, some additional security guarantees, we can as well talk about additional security guarantees on the territory of Azerbaijan. I personally don't think that Russian, presence can give any security guarantees. It can give security anti-guarantees. You can be 100% sure if Russians are present on the road. It's like the gun in the theater. One day it will shot. So we can agree that there will be Swiss private corporation that will help both countries in idea of giving security on the roads. If Azerbaijan don't want this private Swiss company, then we don't want it either. As I said, it's reciprocity and equality. By the way, Armenia created a special division in its national security agency that will give additional guarantees for the Azerbaijani and Turkish cargos passing this project called Peace Crossroad. By the way, the road in Mehri, the railroad in Mehri, is also part of this idea of crossroad of peace. Regarding the borders, the problem is there is a border. I mean, during the Soviet era, there were processes of delimitation and demarcation between former at that time Soviet republics. There are maps, there are protocols, there are agreements between Soviet republics. There is a border. You can't deny it. Alma-Ata Declaration was about newly independent states recognizing those administrative borders. So saying that there is no border between Armenia and Azerbaijan and the border, it can move one way or another way is again anti-legal. Regarding the two last elements, the enclaves and the 33 villages. That's first question, and second question was how ready is Armenia to go, how far Armenia can go in its detachment from Russia. Regarding the enclaves and the 33 villages, so there theoretically one can say that there is this issue of enclaves of Azerbaijan in Armenia and of enclave of Armenia in Azerbaijan. there are different ideas on both sides, by the way, how this issue can be solved. There is an idea that we can swap. Armenian enclave on the territory of Azerbaijan remains to Azerbaijan. Armenian enclaves on the Azerbaijani enclaves on the territory of Armenia remains to Armenia. With territory, they are almost the same. It's like 2 or 3 square kilometers of difference. Regarding the 33, it's not 33 villages. It's the territory of 33 villages. Because because of 30 years of animosity and war, the border in different parts is violated by both sides, let's say. So there are parts on the border when, as much as I understand, their forces are significantly in a depth of Armenia, and vice versa. How this should be regulated? It should be regulated during the process of delimitation and demarcation. The most important part in all of this is to recognize that there is a border, to recognize the Soviet maps and do the delimitation and demarcation, recreate the Soviet border. This is the most important part. And the very last element regarding how far can Armenia go in this direction, you know, I would say that there is a revolution of mentality in Armenia. If in the social poll in 2017, more than 80% of the poll members were answering that Russia is, more than 80% were answering that Russia is the key ally for Armenia, and less than 5% were thinking about Russia as a threat. In the beginning of 2023, even prior to the September escalation, which is the biggest blow in the Armenian-Russian relations, more than 40% told that Russia is a threat, making it the 3rd biggest threat, of course, according to Armenian opinion, to statehood of Armenia, and less than 50% answered it as an ally. Now these numbers will be significantly bigger. So my answer to your question is, what we see right now is just the beginning. The movement of Russians out from the Armenian airport. We will see further steps of moving Russian border guards from Armenia, moving out Russian joint anti-air system units from Armenia. We will see Armenia leaving some of Russia-led integrational movements. Armenia de facto left CSTO. We're not attending any event within the scopes of CSTO for already a year. We're not taking part in any military drills. We even called back our ambassador to CSTO for more than a year. So de facto, we are already out from CSTO. My guess is still this is the beginning, and the upcoming 2 years, we'll see much more on this. And the future for Armenia is Armenia's Euro-Atlantic integration.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for mentioning COP29, and which was not mentioned yet was also the exchange of prisoners, which was at least some good signs, you know, that there is some possibility of cooperation, some trust building, some confidence building measures. I think that's very important. Shota, you have been asked also about, is Georgia not also, I don't know, at one point, can it also, you know, lose from this whole normalization process? I mean, I hope not, but please.
I will be very brief, because obviously the public here wants much more to listen to what the parties to the conflict, or the former parties to the conflict, have to say. And my question was the easiest: will Georgia lose or win if the transportation corridors develop and some of the transport flows will bypass Georgia? Overall, I think Georgia will only win, and I think there's a consensus in Georgia that the regional stability, regional peace, increase of the transit throughout the middle corridor from China, from Central Asia, overall will by far compensate for these temporary losses. So therefore, Georgia will do everything in its power to advance the regional networks, despite the short-term possible minimum losses.
Thank you. There was a question over there, and then Eka, you wanted? Perfect. I would like to encourage again the ladies. There is a lady over there. I take you first, and then Marcel. You first. Please be brief. We don't really have a lot of time anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Hello. My name is Georgi Muchaidze, Atlantic Council of Georgia. My question is to Azerbaijani representative. So, as we know, in the next year, the stationing of the Russian peacekeeper term will end. Do you think the Azerbaijani side will extend this stationing, or they will cut it short? And another one is, you have talked about the alternative road to Zangezur, which goes around and through Iranian territory. Is it a kind of a bargaining chip, or it's already happening? And what about it? Can you give us more details? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The lady there, and And you already have it, the mic, the new start.
I already have it. Thank you for a very interesting discussion. Actually, I do not have a question, but I want you to clarify on just a few things which you have said. You have mentioned that Armenian population is ready to, Russians to leave the country. So you think that is possible? Just you might want one thing, but then another thing is how that can be implemented. So about the Gyumri, how possible you think that is? And there should be some mechanism probably in place to achieve that. Also, you mentioned Euro-Atlantic integration. So you meant European, EU, or EU and NATO? Both.
Thank you. Please.
No? Oh. Sorry, this is a really weird sound. So, hello everyone. My name is Sonja Schippers from the Heinrich Böll Foundation. I have a question to the Armenian and Azerbaijani participants, panelists. I would like to know whether you think that your governments are sufficiently preparing the population. Oh my God. Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah, this should be better. So I would like to know whether you think that your governments are sufficiently preparing the populations for peace, as was discussed before the 2020 war already didn't work out. Now, is this happening? Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel.
And finally, thank you so much for your openness, for your dialogue. Well, my feeling is that both sides seem not to be in a hurry with a peace agreement. And I was wondering, what are the factors, external factors, factors which are not in your hands that could speed up the process? And what do you think about the term of protected peace or peace without peace agreement? And together with that, what do you think about the idea, as long as you don't have a peace agreement, to at least withdraw the troops from the borders, which are not yet recognized, to conventional arms control, to transparency, maybe even mediated by third powers, if not the EU. I understand that's problematic, by Georgia, just to give an idea. So what do you see, what can be done pragmatically on the way to the big agreement?
Would you like to start? So it was about Russian peacekeepers, the alternative route in Iran. And
yes, once again, I would like to remind that Azerbaijan, one of the first countries, was in the South Caucasus, which get rid of Russian troops in February '93. And actually 2 months after that, we lost Kalbajar. It was occupied by Armenia. So we see direct links between these events. And all these years we guarded our border ourselves, and we didn't have any troops. We had only one radiolocation station by Russians, which was closed down in 2012. So that's, and we declared the position of neutrality and non-alignment. So I think 25 hopefully will be the last year. With regard to alternative through Iranian territory, yeah, well, we feel that maybe Zangezur won't go through. So we already signed agreement with Iranian side. We already started building a bridge. The map is gone. So through Araz River, which divides Azerbaijan and Iran. So we're doing some practical steps. Interestingly enough, again, yesterday was speaking about some sort of the lecturing here about values. When we did that, the Americans objected that we are building a road through Iran. They said that we should build through Armenia. Last year in October, Armenia and Iran signed agreement about building the road from Iran to Armenia. Americans did not object to that. So there is a very complex geopolitics here, and I don't think some people here, they declared certain values, they are really workable in our region. With regard to population prepared, it is a really very, I would say, painful process for both peoples. I agree, there is a lot of pain, losses, tragedies, and it's not easy. Just tell you, before coming here, I met with delegation from UK, and there's the very long process, Irish-British reconciliation, which is still going on. And in now Ireland, you have the political branch of the Sinn Féin party. So I think this is a very long process between two people to reach. I mean, maybe we're speaking about several generations before we can heal the wounds of the conflict. But what I would like also to mention that the certain external powers, they are not contributing to the peace. They're trying to exacerbate the conflict and narrative, and unfortunately certain German foundations also. They are promoting one-sided narratives. We see that they not giving the perspective to one side and just promoting one-sided narratives. I don't think it is contribution to peace and the reconciliation between two people. As far as what is pace was question about we're not in hurry of peace agreement. You see, it's again we have some the problems. Again, I stick to the point about constitution and the Armenian documents. We have. You referred to the Almaty Declaration. For all these years, we advocated for the principle of territorial integrity. Why there is no demarcated border for these 30 years? So it's a question not to Azerbaijan. By the way, the Almaty Declaration was ratified by Armenian parliament with some reservations against Azerbaijan. Though now Pashinyan says that we have not submitted this reservation to a depository, so it's not valid. But anyway, that was the attitude in Armenia for all these years. So we would like to ensure that the interest of Azerbaijan, its security guaranteed in the future. The problem also with, as I said, with the external powers, for example, the Armenian side is ready, and we already had twice meetings on the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Our approach and our call to meet without any mediators, because with this geopolitical rivalry, Russian, Washington, Brussels, French, Germans, all of things, we are sometimes have to mediate between mediators. So the proposal is to meet and to discuss bilaterally. On the delimitation, Armenians agreed. We had meetings in end of November and end of January. But on the peace treaty, they at least say that, no, we need some external power because we don't want to speak vis-a-vis. So that's why it's also problematic, because on certain, let's say, platforms, we feel the interest of geopolitical, or let's say the clash of geopolitical powers has negative impact on our region.
Maybe just briefly on the question from Marcel, the protected peace as well, on the withdrawal of troops. That could be, also as a sign of.
You cannot say to the country which territory destroyed that we should move our troops somewhere. We are on our borders. We're ensuring that there is no shootings, that there is no attack. So that's not the workable proposal to withdraw troops. We have very bad memories about what's happening on our border, even outside of the Karabakh, they occupied in the north, in the Tavuz region in July 2020, where there was the clashes. So I don't think, and recent incident, by the way, when someone shoot from the Armenian side, what we've seen that the 4 people which were killed during the actions, they are 60 years old, in our case 55 years old, they're on the Armenian side. So this is the veterans which were put on the service, and of course you can expect that those veterans will provoke something. So I don't think it's the workable solution.
I'll start from the point my colleague ended, from the demilitarization. Armenia is ready to do this procedure, to do the demilitarization of the border. We have raised this issue for 3 times during the last 2 years. We've suggested to create a zone of demilitarization 1, 2, 3 kilometers of depth to exclude the accidents like one that happened lately. And I think it's a very legitimate, position. If you want to go to peace, at least for several months, you have to ensure stability and non-violation of the ceasefire regime on the border. And one of the most important instruments to do that is the demilitarization and withdrawal of forces from the immediate contact. I mean, on the line of contact, there are positions that are 200 meters away from each other. Soldiers standing on both sides can hear each other. Now you tell me, is it a dangerous situation or is it not? Of course it is a dangerous situation, and of course demilitarization is needed. Regarding the foreign players and external powers, I see only one external power that doesn't want to see the peace in this region, and that's Russia. I don't see any other external power, including Turkey, by the way. Now you will be surprised, an Armenian saying this, but I don't see Turkey being against the peace process. Only Russia is against peace process. Western powers that are involved in the peace process right now are just the ones who want to ensure that there is a peace process rather than a domination process. That's the only part that our colleagues in Azerbaijan don't like, and don't like the Western involvement in the process. Sorry?
Iran.
Regarding Iran, it's a questionable issue regarding Iran, whether Iranian side wants the full normalization or not, but Iran's involvement is very much limited, by the way, and it's also limited because of Armenia. Iran would want much bigger involvement in this issue, and it's Armenia that limits it. Whether Armenia would agree to everything Iran suggested Armenia so far, you would have dozens times more Iranian involvement in South Caucasus than you have right now. Regarding how quick we should be on the peace treaty, I think we have to hurry because there is a deadline. And the deadline is called the war in Ukraine. Russians are busy in Ukraine. Whenever they will be done there, and it doesn't even matter if they win or they lose, because they can be weakened compared to NATO, they can be even weakened compared to Ukraine, but they cannot be weakened compared to Armenia, Georgia, or Azerbaijan. They will be strong enough to oppose the peace. So the deadline is the war in Ukraine. If we manage to sign the peace treaty prior to the end of the war in Ukraine, that's our chance. That's the window of opportunity we have. So we have to hurry. No questions there. Regarding whether we should prepare the population, I wouldn't agree on this one with my colleagues. I've recently read that there was a poll in Azerbaijan saying that more than 70% wants the peace treaty with Armenia, and similar situation is in Armenia. So my impression is that both societies want, and they like absolute majority of the societies want the peace treaty. Another question, of course, is restarting and relearning to live together. That's already a question for decades, in my opinion. That will take decades. But the most important fact is that the absolute majority of both populations right now is ready to sign the peace treaty. 3 more questions. So regarding Euro-Atlantic. Euro-Atlantic doesn't mean only European Union. That's why it's called Euro-Atlantic. But I will not elaborate anything more than this. Regarding the base in Gyumri, this is the most problematic issue. If anything else is manageable within 6 months, because, for example, if Armenia wants to leave CSTO, it can inform its colleagues in CSTO and do that in 6 months. The same goes for the border guards. The same goes for the Eurasian Union. The military base in Gyumri has a problem. It is signed unconditionally until 2049, if I'm not 44 or 49. I'm not sure on this one. Like legally, there are no procedures how we can change this. But I refer to this more as a political question, rather legal. If there is a situation when we are able to move out the Russian military base from Armenia, I don't think that the piece of paper or a legality will be the red line that will not be possible to pass through. 2 more questions were there regarding the logic of the road through Armenia. They're saying it goes through from Azerbaijan to Azerbaijan. That's why it needs to have some special status. Okay, the shortest way from Yerevan to Meghri is through Nakhichevan. If we manage to come to a situation when we agree to give, these special economic conditions to Azerbaijani cargos moving from western regions of Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan, if they give us the same through Nakhichevan to connect with our south, no problem. As I said, reciprocity, equality. That's the issue. And the very last one regarding, I've seen even in the audience, our Georgian colleagues are using the word Zangezur. How would you feel if I use the word Tiflis? I think you wouldn't like it. In the territory of Armenia, there is no region called Zangezur. It's called Syunik.
I was going to say we say too in German, but sorry. I'm very sorry we are already at the end. I see there have been too many questions still there, but I think you guys are still around, so please feel free to approach them and ask them your questions. There is no break, but I still think like maybe in 30 seconds, just to end on a positive note, I do think it was not too negative, so let me thank you to all of you on this one. So I think it was very constructive, but maybe just from all of you, like what would be your wish for the next 3 to 5 years for the region in general, maybe also specifically for your country?
Well, we are hosting COP29. Next year we are hosting also a big conference on urban development. I agree that we actually agreed also to support the Armenian candidature to some of the UN bodies. So Azerbaijan is focused on several issues: the energy, transportation, and also internal development and reconstruction and rebuilding its territories. So that's basically for. If I can be very brief, or should be brief, so those goals for our government.
So what would be the perfect situation for 3-5 years?
Your wish. Yeah.
My wish. Obviously signing the peace treaty with Azerbaijan. Armenia is ready to do this. Normalization of relations with Azerbaijan, normalization of relations with Turkey, lifting out and turning on the music of Prashanya Slavanki and waving to Russian troops in Armenia and saying them goodbye. And the Euro-Atlantic integration of Armenia. That's my positive agenda for the next 5 years.
Shota.
Well, I have a very easy answer. As long as the wishes of the both sides are met, we are happy.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. Thank you. And as I said, no break.